Hey, this is Brandon Jones, author of the award-winning College Readiness 101 workbook series, here with another episode of the College Readiness 101 podcast. So, as you know, I have been speaking with students about their experience, about what they did to prepare for college, and it's just the student's perspective on college preparation. So, today I have a very, very special guest, Miss Aliana Stanley. She is the recipient of one of the scholarships from my fraternity, the Noonan Fairburn alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi. So I am very happy to speak with you today. Eliana, just because, you know, my listeners and my viewers won't really know a lot about you, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everybody. My name is Aliana Stanley. I am currently a junior at Spelman College. I was a two-time 2020 graduate. Graduated in May 2020 with my high school diploma and in December 2020 with my associate's degree from Clayton State University. And I am a psychology and political science double major looking to head on to law school in the future. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So if you don't know, when you see the intros to the College Readiness 101 podcast and things online, you will see Miss Stanley's face. She is one of the faces of the College Readiness 101 brand. So I'm very, very excited to have her on today. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first question I always ask the students is kind of tell us about your college preparatory process, right? So some students and their families, they started their process, you know, at the beginning of high school. Some are late, you know, they waited to the senior year. Some have just been talking about college all their life. So kind of what has your process been with you and your family before you got to college?
Yeah, so my process was kind of a mix of everything.
Okay.
In between middle school and high school, I moved from New Jersey to Georgia. It was absolutely devastating for me because I left all of my friends. I was like, what am I going to do? And even before then, like college wasn't on my radar. So I really used my freshman year to get acclimated to a new state, a new school, new people. So freshman year was completely out for me. Then sophomore year was kind of when I started realizing, oh, I'm in high school. Like, I guess I have to start thinking about my future a little bit more and started looking into stuff. So my first college tour was during my sophomore year of high school. That tour, actually, I was so convinced I was going to go to that school. It's right down the street from Spelman, Georgia State. I was absolutely in love with it. In the middle of the city, I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. And that was when I started looking at my college list. So that's where I started looking at schools nationwide, like what they offer, if they accept advanced placement credits, how far they are from home, what extracurriculars I could get involved in. That was my sophomore year. And, you know, of course, as you go through high school, things change. So junior year was the first time that I toured Spelman. And when I toured Spelman, I fell in love with Spelman. That's where I was like, you know what? I set foot on campus and I said, this is home. So that's when I really started to buckle down and try and put myself in a position where I would be a competitive Spelman applicant specifically. Spelman, if you're not familiar, is, you know, a top HBCU. It is they have a very accomplished admissions class most of the time. So
this is true.
Yeah, 3.8 GPA, high SAT, a lot of community service leadership. So junior year is when I decided, like, hey, I need to start getting myself ready to be a competitive applicant to get into Spelman, because I knew that's where I ultimately wanted to be. But let me backtrack a little bit. So I did skip a part. Sophomore year is actually when I found dual enrollment and when I started. So the summer immediately following my sophomore year is when I started dual enrolling at Clayton State. But we'll get to that. So yeah, junior year was when I took my most rigorous courses. I think I took like 4 AP classes that year.
Oh,
I
wow.
was buckled down. I was like, Spelman is it. I'm going to get there. And then that's when I also put in all my applications. So, you know, for the most part, junior year is when I started my personal statement, is when I started looking at, you know, what have I done over these past, you know, at that point, 3 years that I need to include on these applications and all that good stuff. So once I got to the summer before senior year, that was when applications really opened. And that's when I started really applying. So I applied to a lot of schools. I applied to 30 something schools.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Was this through the Common App, or was this like 30 applications?
It was mostly Common App. So I
Okay.
think the maximum that you can apply through the Common App is 20. So I
Okay.
had 20 Common App schools and then, 10, 15, whatever other schools.
Yeah.
And then those other schools. So most of them were, I think I did maybe like a third of the schools I applied for. So 10, 11 were HBCUs because I knew that, for me, college was the time to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. I've never been in a majority Black environment before.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
predominantly white. That's just, where I grew up in. So I knew that I wanted to at least put myself in a position where, in any case, I could be in that environment to push myself outside my comfort zone when I get to college. And then the rest of the schools were, I had a few REAP schools, and then I had my safety schools, and then I had my I'm for sure going to get in schools. So that was the application process. I did get into all of them but 2, I think.
Wow. Okay.
That was exciting. I was like,
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
but yeah, so that was the application process. Now senior year is where everything got kind of wonky because I was getting ready to go to college and I was so excited about figuring out where am I actually going to be because financial and everything is factored in. But then in March, the world was launched into a worldwide pandemic, so that was great. And I really had to sit back and think about, what do I really want? What's going to be the best decision for me? And, that was a big conversation between me and my parents because colleges in America specifically are really usually big expense, depending on where you want to go, what type of school it is, all that good stuff. So because of COVID, I was really forced to slow down and kind of think about what I really wanted to do. And that ultimately forced me, COVID, that is, to decide where I wanted to go. And I ended up staying at Clayton State for my fall semester right after graduation, and then transferring into Spelman this past spring. So that was kind of my college prep process. It was a little bit everywhere because, I'm a very enthusiastic person. I'll put it that way. So I kind of overdo things when I get excited about them. So it was like I wanted to go everywhere. I want to do everything. I mean, I applied to 30 schools. Like, who does that? Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The process, it was a bit less organized than I'm sure most people have them, and it was a little bit more sporadic. But I think because I did it the way that I did, I ended up where I'm at now. So
yeah. Well, the good part about that, and it's actually the part I want to talk about because you're unique, right? So you said that you graduated from high school with your high school diploma, and then soon after that you graduated with your associate's degree, right? From Clayton State University, and it's because you were taking dual enrollment classes, right? Yeah. And so that's the great thing about it. So I wanted to talk with you about specifically your dual enrollment experience. The reason being is because dual enrollment is huge down here in Georgia, right? So it is one thing that's being pushed a whole lot. And you started as a sophomore, and you took a lot of classes. You got the credits for it, and you kind of transfer. So now you're going to graduate early, age-wise, right? So you're going to be an early graduate because you had already had 2 years completed, right? So.
Yeah.
So kind of tell us about your dual enrollment experience. What was it like? Was the classes on Clayton State's campus? Did you take them online? Were they harder? What was kind of like that experience for you?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer all of that. I'll just go chronologically as best as I can. So I came upon dual enrollment because there was a meeting at school. It was just a dual enrollment interest meeting. And a lot of times in high school, you kind of just see flyers and you're like, oh, you brush it off. But it was more of a, my parents, we saw, oh, it's a free program, let's at least look into it. Because, if you think that something may be worthwhile, why not just look at two?
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the meeting. We looked at the requirements. You had to get into the school that you applied to. At that point, I had taken the SAT, so I was, kind of set for the application process. And we were like, you know what? Let's try it out. Let's see how you like it. Let's see if you like it. And then we can go from there. So I did enroll. Well, let's say I applied to Clayton State. I did get in as a dual enrollment student, which I was super excited about. That was my first college acceptance, and I was 14 years old. So I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so I remember very vividly my first class started 2 days after I turned 15. So I was like terrified because I was like, I'm barely a teenager.
Yeah, you didn't know if you were prepared. Yeah.
Right. So it was a bit of a learning curve in the sense that, I had to learn to be okay with being nervous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't really sure how I was going to do. And, I wasn't a bad student. I was never really a bad student, but it was kind of just a new thing. And I just I didn't know how I was going to do. So, yeah, my first class, it was during the summer. Like I said, I started the summer after my sophomore year, and I took government and psychology. So, interestingly enough, and this kind of goes back to my college prep process a little bit, I didn't know what I wanted to major in until I dual enrolled. My first enrollment class, one of them was psychology, and I loved it. So I was like, I could do this. So psychology and government. At that point, I only took government to take care of a high school requirement.
Yeah.
And I had an interest in it, but I was like, psychology is it. So those were my first two classes, and those were completely online. And that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with this online thing, not having to go to campus, kind of just doing it on my own and, kind of self-paced. So that's my first experience. Moving forward, now we're into the school year. So it was my junior year. Junior year is said to be the hardest year. For me, it was because, I packed everything into junior year.
Yeah, you had all those AP classes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let me focus more on high school and just take one dual enrollment class. And funny enough, I almost failed that class.
Wow.
So in college, unlike high school, you're more than likely going to run into classes with less grades. So
less opportunities to increase or affect your grade, right?
Correct. So you have the tests are 1 grade, participation is 1 grade, and like discussion boards is 1 grade. And those are the 3 things that factor into your grade. And that semester, it was homecoming, right? So I was involved in the club, and we did all the setup for homecoming. And so I was just really busy that week. And, before that point, I didn't have any way that I organized my stuff. I didn't have a calendar or anything. So lo and behold, I forgot about a test. And I was in the middle of a football game. And I forgot about a test. I was like, this is due at 10 o'clock. It is 9:30 and I'm at a football game. I don't know. It's like, I don't know what to do. So, of course, me being the 11th grader that I was, I sat down and I took the test. Wasn't prepared, not at all. I was like, anything is better than 0. And I got a 52 on it. That test tanked my grade. Mm-hmm. I did everything in my power to raise that grade. I did really well the rest of the semester, A's on everything, but I just could not bring it up after that 52. And I ended up with a D in that class. That was the worst grade that I'd gotten in a college course and a high school course ever. Like that was just, it was such a stark reality because it was like, wow, I did that bad. And it was just crazy to me. So after that point was when I became more of the person that I am today. Yeah. That's when I started using a planner and using a calendar and really putting my assignments in so I don't forget, don't miss, don't anything ever. It was crazy because I was like freaking out because, of course, to get into Spelman, you need a
to
decent
have,
GPA.
really
I was
competitive
like, how is this
profile.
going to affect my GPA? Like, what is this going to do to me? So, I took the class, and with dual enrollment, another thing, for most cases, in order for a credit to transfer to a different university, you need to get a C or higher. That's a passing score.
Yep.
And with dual enrollment, you can't retake a class unless you want to pay for the retake. So it was just kind of I took the class, I learned the lesson, and moved on.
Yeah.
After that, I did have 2 different in-person classes. They were in 2 different semesters. Now
Were they on campus?
Yeah. So
I was trying to find out if they was on. I know some will offer it on your high school campus, but others you actually have to go to the college campus. And so that's what I wanted to mention.
I didn't take any that were on my high school campus because they weren't offered, but it was 2 different. Well, Clayton State specifically it's either 2 or 3 different campuses. I can't remember right now, but they have the main campus in Morrow, Georgia, which is, where all the dorms are housed and all that good stuff. They have one in Henry County, and then they have one in Fayette County. So Fayette County is where I live, and that was the closest one to me. So I had an opportunity to take an in-person class at the Fayette County campus, which was, I think it was a 7:30 class. It was horrible. And at that point, I couldn't drive either. So my dad had to drive me to class every morning. We had to get up, and he had to drive me to class and wait in the parking lot while I was in class because, I had to take the class. So that
welcome to college classes, right?
Right. And so that was one of my on-campus experiences. And the second was I actually did have to go to the Morrow campus. That one's about 40 minutes away, so that was super fun. And I had this class twice a week for 4 weeks. It was a summer class. It was the second summer session. And I honestly took the class because, number one, I knew I needed the class for a high school requirement. And number two, I wasn't doing anything that summer and I was bored. So I was like, you know what? If the class is available, let me take it. And I was like, it's only going to be 8 times for the semester. I might as well just do it. Again, couldn't drive, so dad had to drive me tomorrow twice a week for 4 weeks for an econ class. And that one, it was technically a hybrid class. So we met for the 2 times, and then everything else, the assignments and stuff, were online. Yeah. So that was my second on-campus experience. With that being said, I didn't want a campus experience really. For dual enrollment, while I was doing it, I was really focused on having my high school experience in the long run. So I was really involved in high school. I did a bunch of extracurriculars, a lot of activities, all that good stuff. And I wanted to keep that. A lot of people, if you're a dual enrollment student, you do have access to all of the campus stuff, the campus clubs, sports, all that good stuff. Because even though the state is paying for it, it's still your experience. So you're still enrolled
a college student.
In college, right?
A college student, right.
However, that wasn't my story. That's not what I wanted. So while it was available, like I would go to the campus to get my textbooks, but that was about it at the beginning of the semester. Now I will say that part of me does regret it. I think that it would have been good for me, had I known that we would have been in a pandemic by the time I graduated, to at least kind of experience a little bit of what campus life is like. One thing that I definitely think that dual enrollment was really good for was teaching me how to learn in an online environment. That's one thing that I found myself having a leg up in when we were put into a pandemic, because a lot of people did not know how to learn online. And that was one reason why nationwide grades just dropped, because, as a student who you're used to going to class every day, used to having your teachers there, accessible at all times, it was just completely different. Right. So that was one thing that I was really grateful for by the time we got to the pandemic area, that I had that online experience and was aware of what it was like to be an online learner. Now, You have any questions?
No, I was gonna ask you. So did you find that the classes that you were taking were more difficult than your high school classes, or did you find that it was kind of the same and you just had to do the work anyway? Right?
Yeah. So this is something that when people ask me about dual enrollment, I kind of say high school is not, or let me say college is not harder than high school in the sense of the coursework necessarily. Now, that's not to say that every professor is the same, because
some classes are harder than others. Yeah.
Right. Some professors are just drilling into you. You need to get this, blah, blah, blah. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not different levels of difficulty. The biggest difference is in college, you're going to have to be self-sufficient. You have to be able to get your work done when you need to get it done in order to get your grade and get the grade that you want and get the grade that you deserve. Because in college specifically, they are not going to be falling behind you. Most professors are not going to check up on you, depending on the school, I would say, because especially at larger schools, those 20,000 and up student schools, professors quite literally don't have the time to be running behind you and say, why didn't you turn this in? Where's your essay? They can't do that. So college is a lot of, self-starter. I need to get this done because I need to get my degree. I want to get the grade to set myself up to get my degree in a way that I like it, right? So while I don't believe the coursework is any harder, I believe that the overall college education is a bit harder because it's more
of you.
Right. It's more you putting yourself into it, and it's not so much your teachers encouraging you to do it.
So you know what? A lot of times when I was working in admissions, I was a recruiter. Specifically in your situation, let's say I was a recruiter at Spelman. There's some hard requirements for a freshman to get in, right? And that's just what it's going to be, right? But if you transfer, right, it's a little easier, air quotes, a little easier to get in because you're not coming in with the freshman requirements, right? You're coming in with your college courses. So how was that? Because I know you went from Clayton State to Spelman. So kind of how was that process?
Again, a little biased, but I'm a huge advocate for transferring. It saves money in a lot of cases. Because if let's say you want to go, or you do go to community college and get your first 2 years done, chances are all of those credits are going to transfer wherever you want to go, and you start out fresh with a new GPA. That's the really big plus for transferring. For me specifically, I did not have a good college GPA. Okay, let me not say that. My GPA was bad. I will say by when I graduated high school, I had a 3.12. Doing was a learning experience. I had to kind of figure out I had to figure out how I learned. And I had to, learn about deadlines and how strict deadlines really are. And I had to learn how to communicate with professors and all that good stuff. Let me just put a side note in here. Dual enrollment is a really good way to introduce yourself to how to speak to your professors and how to, I don't want to say get the leg up, but get the leg up on your other peers, because a lot of people, especially as a freshman, don't know how to do that. So that's just a little plug right there. But yeah, so once I graduated high school at a 3.12, that fall semester, I did really well, and I took 18 credits. It was a lot.
Wow, okay.
I got a 4.0, so I was able to raise that to a 3.34. Now, that 3.3 didn't really compare to my high school GPA, which was a 3.7. And, even as a transfer student, there's still a certain level that they expect you to be as an applicant. And when I applied to Spelman, it was my 3.1 that was on my GPA, because my final transcript hadn't been in yet, right? So that was one thing. It was still a little bit nerve-wracking. going in with a 3.1 as an applicant, because even though, I'd been accepted previously, it was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to get back in. But I did get in, and, my credits were evaluated. I'd done right around 2.5 years at Clayton State. So I ended up with 2 years transferring to Spelman.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that, again, saved a lot of money.
Yeah, because you're not paying 4 years of Spelman tuition, right? You're
Not
paying 2 years of Spelman tuition. Right. That makes sense.
That's a big money saver. And I started over fresh with a 0.0. So that means that I don't have to work as hard to raise my GPA. And, this spring I did really well, and I actually have 4.0.
Well, so, that's amazing.
Thank you. I went from a 3.34 in the fall to a 4.0 in the spring. That is an idea of what transferring into school can do for you. And one thing, I was a dual enrollment student, obviously, in high school, but I was also an AP student. So if you are an AP student, for those who are listening, and you want to know what the argument between AP and dual enrollment is, I'm going to choose dual enrollment every time. And I will explain why. Number one, you can get more done quicker. So AP is a full-year course. Dual enrollment are their semesters. So most colleges, if not, well, it is most, have semester courses. So you can get, let's say, 4 done in the spring, 4 done in the fall, versus AP 4 courses for the entire year. And then the other biggest reason that I choose dual enrollment is AP is never guaranteed. So, and this is very important as an AP student, if you are wanting to go to college and have your credits be accepted, not all schools accept AP credits at all. Not all schools accept certain AP exams, and not all schools accept certain scores. So that is very important for you to be aware of before you apply for colleges if you intend to use your AP credit. With dual enrollment, the only problem that you're going to run into most of the time, well, there's going to be 2. So accreditation of your school. Some schools only accept credits from certain accreditations, which, I'm not the person to talk to that about, but, that happens. And then number 2 is statewide. If you're transferring to an out-of-state place if you're transferring to a different state with the credits from your home state, then it might be iffy. But, those are really the only 2 problems that you're going to run into as a dual enrollment student, as opposed to an AP student. With that being said, both AP and dual enrollment contributed to me getting my degree. So there's pros and cons to both sides, but yeah, that's really my little spiel about the differences.
Let's hold up there, Aliana. So we are reaching our limit for today's episode. Will you stick around? Will you do a part B with me?
Of course. I'd love to.
For students.
Yeah, I would love to. Of course. That's just, I love to talk about it, clearly.
Perfect. All right. So let's close this one out. So if you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, you can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube and on any streaming platform. And you can reach my website at brandonjones.me or collegereadiness101.com. So we're going to stick around. We're going to finish this interview with Aliana, and we will see you next time.